Hello, welcome guys to today's construction tech tips. We will be going over simulating construction, sequencing, and phasing in Twinmotion. A little bit background here for me is, if we'll go to the next screen here. Yep, I come from the industry, construction industry. I have experience doing estimating as well as a little bit of project management as well. For commercial and federal projects. So that's a little bit about me. On today's agenda, I will go ahead and introduce you to Twinmotion, how to download it in the Epic Games launcher, and how to utilize it for phasing purposes. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Right, so this is my Twinmotion. Let's go ahead and locate where you can find it. All right, so yeah, right here on Epic Games, you'll just go ahead and sign in. Second, sorry, two-factor authentication. Epic Games launcher, and then from there you will go ahead and find the Twinmotion app and install it to your computer from there. That's all there is to it. From there, there's not much setup. Once you have this open, you're pretty much ready to go. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. Yeah, essentially, this is going to be my starting ground, my starting background, and this is where I can basically start my project. A lot of times I do like to get rid of this starting ground and just have kind of a blank canvas to start with. It's totally up to your preference, but yep, I just like to get rid of it. All right, so once we are here on the clear starting ground, what I then like to do is import my model. So there is a bunch of importing methods that you can utilize here. You have geometry, direct linking, animation, landscape, and point cloud. The difference between all of these is geometry is just going to be your standalone UDATASMITH file that you've converted, whether it's from Revit or whatever 3D software you're utilizing. You'd convert it to a UDATASMITH file and then import it each time you want to make an update to that geometry file. You also have the direct linking method, which will allow you to have a live feedback update with Revit, as long as you have Revit 2024 and above open at the same time as your Twinmotion. This is very good for people that like to work on two screens, have Revit open one screen, Twinmotion open in the other screen. This will allow you to make changes live in Revit and have it update in real time in Twinmotion. Animation is going to be things like your, your Adobe animation that is now supported in Twinmotion. So any animation items you have with Adobe or any 3D objects, things like that, we'll go ahead. That will allow you to import those animation type 3D objects. If you have a landscape file for, from a landscape architect or anything like that, landscape is usually the way to go. This will allow you to import those, landscape studio files, stuff like that. And then finally, you have point cloud, which is essentially just a 3D scan of a model that you might have from the field that you can then import and enhance further here in Twinmotion. But I'm going to go with geometry for now. I just wanted to highlight those different import options you do have. I have my sample Revit house in UDATASMITH file ready to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that. One thing I always like to say, especially if you're trying to do construction phasing, always do keep hierarchy. The reason for that is here on the right hand side, I have what's called my scene graph, and this will allow me to see all the objects that are in my view. Keep hierarchy will allow me to see like individual windows, doors, roofing, stuff like that. Collapse by material will give me like a collapsed folder material. So like, for example, if I had 10 windows on the project, all 10 windows will be in one folder, and I wouldn't be able to single select them. Collapse all will just give you one model folder in your scene graph where it'll just select the whole model and you won't have any customizability there. So keep hierarchy is a way to go. It'll just pretty much detail out everything for you that you want to hide in your phasing. But yeah, pretty much that's it. Now I have my nice little Revit model here floating in the sky. All right, so a couple of things here. You can see that me zooming in and out is very slow. So what I like to do is immediately come in here and change my sensitivity speed. Depending on what type of sensitivity you like, 5 and 6, drive speed and fly speed are your more faster options. If you're a lot further away, I would suggest going to flight speed, as that will, pretty much allow you to move in faster. But I'll go with drive speed for now. This will allow me to do that. Now my model with its ground and everything is essentially floating in the air right now, right? So I want to go ahead and bring some realism to this. So the first thing I like to do is go into my vegetation in my library and add my background, or I should say landscape. All right, so now my landscape has been brought in, but now it's my model is now kind of sinking inside of my landscape. So what I can do is, again, you have your scene graph here, and these are all your individual materials. I will go ahead and select the main model folder here, and I'll just go ahead and raise this up a little bit. There we go. Let's raise it up a little more. All right, yeah, right about there should be fine. Okay. So now what do I do with the rest of these gaps? I do have some sculpting I can do here to fill in these gaps. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sculpt my terrain, and I will go to populate here at the bottom. If you already have your model imported, you don't need to have the import graph, there at all times. It'll just give you more screen real estate to get rid of that. But again, I'll just open up my populate tool, go ahead and expand this a little bit further up. And sorry, oh, there we go. Yeah, so now I'm able to sculpt my terrain. So diameter, think of it as a paintbrush. You'll have your little paintbrush here listed. Yeah, if you can see it, it's a little circle. This will allow you to expand and make your paintbrush a lot wider and a lot bigger. I think this is a correct size, so I'll leave that. The intensity will allow you to intensify your paintbrush area. So for example, I'm clicking and dragging. You see how slowly it's sculpting that? If I go ahead and increase the intensity, you'll see that it'll start to increase it even faster. So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'll just start to sculpt around just like that underneath. And I'll just go ahead and orbit around using the shift key on my keyboard and the middle scroll button. Yep, now I have sculpted my terrain for the most part. So now I have these really not so good looking mountains around my platform. So now I can go ahead and utilize some other tools. I have the digging tool, but I think I'm going to go with the smoothing tool. That's going to allow me to smooth those rough edges, just like that. Just do that all around, just like that. Perfect. So now we have our elevated area. Now my, oops, 1 second, sorry. If I select the model in my scene graph and I press F on my keyboard, it will position me back if I ever get lost like that. But yeah, now I'm able to, now I'm going to want to make this grass kind of blend a little bit more, this material. So I will go into my ground material and I will go ahead and select nature and select the grass material. There we go. Now my grass blends in with the rest of the platform. Perfect. Aside from that, if I just want to go ahead and enhance the background a little more, I have a couple of things I can do here. I can go to outdoors in my HDRI environment, and then I can go ahead and drag and drop an HDRI environment just like that. Now my horizon is the only thing that's not covered, so I can also change my enhancement. Sorry, my horizon. So I'll just scroll down here on the right hand side under ambiance and I'll toggle my horizon just like that. So now it's brought in the city and I have a whole bunch of things I can choose from here. I'm good with the city for now. Now I'm ready to go ahead and manipulate a little bit further. Do have a little bit more cleaning up to do, so let me go ahead and clean this up a little more. Smooth that part and this part. There we go. All right, perfect. So let's say this client wants a little pond area here. You can go ahead and utilize the dig tool in the same way and start digging little pocket area here for there to be a little pond. So now to bring about the pond, you would just scroll here and go to your ocean, select enable. You don't want the whole place to be covered, so you'll just go ahead and adjust the height, just like that. And this looks like river water. If I want it to look more pondish, I can, change the color there, make it to whatever makes sense. So I'll go with that for now. All right, so yeah, now I pretty much have my model up here. So let's get into some phasing here. What I'm going to want to do first and foremost is go to my media. And I am going to go to sequence. Right here. Oh, actually, let's do phasing. All right, so essentially what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to hide my model elements here. So let me go ahead and hide that. So now I just have a little bumpy terrain, which is okay. Now I'll add my first phasing track. Now notice how I have months here at the top. Right now I'm doing this December 18th. But yeah, I can move this phase to whatever month makes sense whenever my construction is going to start. But let's just start it here at the beginning of February, for example. So I hit all of my elements. That means, this is what's going to be seen in February. What I'm also going to do in this scene, in this phase, is I'm also going to utilize the vehicles construction machine. So first and foremost, let's do, probably don't need a crane, but maybe we want something like a track loader like this. Animated. So the difference between animated and the regular one is that the animated one will actually have some animation to it, which is great. So if I zoom in here, you'll see the animation. Yep, you'll see it moving pretty much. Yep, and then if we want to add an animated excavator, we can do so as well. Just like that. I'll probably move it somewhere around right here. All right, and then One thing I also like to do is I like to select the specific element. So rather than it just being a pile of dirt, I'll get rid of that. Or actually, I don't even have to get rid of it. I can leave it, and I can find it on my scene graph here, and that is, let me minimize that. Actually, let me bring that back up. That's my rubble one. So rubble one, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my truck. And before I go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and right click, replace object. And there, I'll just go ahead and drag and drop it. Oops. Sorry, I just need to bring this up a little more. Yeah, so right here is where it says to replace object. This is where I'll go ahead and put it in my truck and start my replacement. There we go. Now I have my truck in, so that's great. Now let me just rotate it a little more. Actually, let me do this. Just do that and rotate it. So that way, you know, it'll look like it's actually putting it into the truck. So yeah, now I have my construction pretty much starting here, and you know, this truck is a little bit big, so I can go into my XYZ coordinates here, or I can utilize my scaling truck here, and I can go ahead and scale it however I see fit. So let's just go 75% all across. This is my XYZ coordinates. So maybe let's go 90. Yeah, close enough. But yeah, so essentially that's how you'll be, you know, starting to simulate your construction phasing. Another thing I do want to point out here is we do have our mixers that are pretty much animated as well, but rather than just, you know, well, we can have one here, and then I'll go ahead and show you guys how you can utilize putting in another one. So we have one just stationed here, and then let's go to now our paths. So I'll go to populate now, and now we can utilize vehicle paths. So essentially what it'll allow you to do is just create kind of like an egress path each time. Just like that. And now my little object, I can select it. Make sure. Okay. There we go. Yep, my custom path is now selected. Now I'm going to want to replace it with a vehicle. Let's use our animated mixer right there. There we go. Now we can have that truck animation coming in and out. So yeah, this is phase one. This is the construction just happening. So now I can create another phase and pretty much add another track just like that. So now in March, what's going to happen? This is where we'll go ahead and get a little creative. And right now I have everything turned off, but maybe I don't need everything now. Maybe I'll have probably the foundation stuff on. So let me turn off my roof. Let me turn off, let me see that. We can keep the topography. Maybe, yeah, let's turn off the topography for now. And then let's turn off the railings. Let's turn off this. So you'll just kind of indicate what you're trying to show. As a matter of fact, since we're going to be turning off most of it, I'm just going to turn off all of it. And then here, let me find foundation. Yep, structural foundation, perfect. Now everything that says structural foundation or foundation, I'll turn on everything in the scene graph. So now all my foundation is pretty much planted. So now I can go ahead and indicate that there. So yeah, that's what phase 2 is going to have. Now we're going to have phase 3. We'll go to the right. Phase 3 now is going to have a topography. So we'll turn on topography. And let's go ahead and get rid of some of these vehicles as well. Yep, so we'll turn on the topography now. Just like that. And yep, maybe now I'll go ahead and add an animated crane. And then I'll add those animated trucks here on the outside of it. Just like that, just to give it more context. And then now I'll go ahead and add another phase. Say on this phase, I'll have pretty much almost everything complete. I'm just missing, like, let's say the exterior stuff. Yeah, let's say like roof basics, the railings, let's turn it off. Stairs, yeah. But I pretty much have everything else. So that's what the house looks like right now. If I really wanted to get really detailed with it, maybe I can go ahead and replace some of this material with a wooden material, like a wood plank material, like plywood, perfect. That way it looks like it's, just being constructed rather than, almost finished. I can go ahead and enhance the grunge on this to make it look a lot more like plywood, just like that. I think that's good for the time being. And yeah, let's turn off the trees as well. Let's say the trees came in later on. So we'll just come in here, look for trees. And yeah, let's go ahead and turn off all of the trees. All right, so all the trees are off, and this is what we have right now. And then from there, I'll just go ahead and add one final scene or one final phase. And this phase is going to have everything pretty much turned on. So let's go ahead and do that. Yep, so everything's turned on. And this one, I'm just going to go ahead and add the paneling back to it. There we go. So now everything's good to go. Everything's constructed. The only thing here is I want to go ahead and replace some of these trees. So let's go ahead and select trees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift select last. So now all of my trees in the vicinity are pretty much selected. So now I can go ahead and right click, replace objects. I'm just going to replace it all with the same tree. So I'll find the tree here, and maybe I like palm trees instead. So I'll go ahead and find palm tree in my selection. So I have these 3 to choose from. Let's go with the canary date palm and start the replacement. There we go. Now with these trees, I am able to age them up. It's using an encyclopedia data from landscape architects, biology data. So that's how the percentages are pretty much calculated in the age. I can also change the different weathering on it as well, but you know, with palm trees, you don't really have any seasonal changes with them. They are either alive or dead. So that's pretty much it for that. And that's the final scene right there. So now let's go ahead and play this. Once, all right. Second, sorry, just trying to make some other enhancements here. Okay, good. So now if I wanted to export it, this will allow me to play. So 1 second, sorry guys. Wait. All right, yeah, so I think some other enhancements has to be done in order to get the full play button, and I don't want to fully render this out because that could, you know, take quite some time, especially since I had a lot of enhancements here. But essentially, this is what you're going to see on a month-to-month basis. So around, you know, February, ignore the water. I just have to adjust the height. But yeah, so let's start like around March area. March era, we're gonna have phase 2 right here. So, you know, our place pretty much being sculpted. Then we have the phase 3 with all the land coming up. Then we have phase 4, which is going to have the trees, everything else coming up. And then phase 5 is where we pretty much ended it there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That is how you can utilize Twinmotion for construction phasing purposes. And it's very good simulation for pre-con purposes, especially when you're trying to do a presentation for owners reps trying to win a project. It's a lot of customizability here, but yeah, I'll turn it back to Sarah to take any questions.
All right, thanks, Ramsey. Let me pull open the questions and see what we have. Second. Okay, so the first one says, I assume there is no command to set geometry of grounds similar to SketchUp.
So repeat that question again. I just want to make sure I fully understand.
Yeah, let me. It says, I assume there is no command to set geometry of grounds similar to SketchUp.
Oh, I'm not familiar with SketchUp, how that is, but essentially if you wanted to, I don't know if this will answer your question, but essentially your geometry in Twinmotion is always going to be your standalone UDATASMITH file, and then your landscape file would be more of, your ground file. So if you wanted to import that separately, you could. You can import as many different file types as you need. Hopefully that answers.
All right, it looks like there's another question. When you assign a material in Twinmotion, does that impact the material assigned in Revit?
No, that's a very good question, and is a question I always get a lot. So when you do the Revit connection with Twinmotion, that is a one-way communication. So any changes you make in Revit will appear in Twinmotion, but any changes you make in Twinmotion will be native to Twinmotion.
All right, great. Can you upload a project schedule for the phasing task?
No, that is. I mean, I've seen a lot of things online regarding that with the Unreal Engine, which Twinmotion is kind of based off of Unreal Engine. But nothing currently. Maybe sometime in the future, probably.
All right. Can you animate your camera during and between phases?
Animate your camera, meaning, yeah. Well, you can have animations if that's what your question is. Yeah, you can have animations between phases. In each phase, essentially, as long as you are, indicating it to the correct phase.
All right, next question. Is there an ability to modify the action any animated object performs?
You can't modify the action, but the modification that I did show you guys with the, replacing the pile of dirt with a truck, though those are the different customizations you can make. But a lot of these animations are already hard coded and animated. The only other way you can create your own animation, let's say within Twinmotion, is if you utilize like a custom path, like I did with the concrete truck. So you'll draw your custom path. You'll replace the box with another truck, and then the truck will essentially move on that path you've laid out for it.
All right, it looks like that was the last question, unless anybody has anything else. Just a reminder, you can type in your questions into the questions pane. But yeah, I think that's it for today. I don't know, Ramsey, do you have anything? Oh gosh, there are a couple more. Can you make a road? Is another question that just came in.
Yes, can you make a road? Yes. So essentially what's going to happen, and I can kind of demonstrate real quick. When I click on my landscape area here, and I go, instead of sculpt, if I did something like paint, I'm going to have these 4 things I can paint onto my ground. One of these things, I would just have to replace it with, asphalt or concrete, something like that. So if I were to just go into ground right here, go to man-made, and I take asphalt, for example, and replace it with mosaics, I can select my mosaics, same type of deal with the paintbrush. and then I'll just start to paint my road just like that. Yep, hope that answers your question.